Welcome to the Giving Nook, where nonprofit leaders, fundraisers, foundations, and philanthropists come to talk all things giving and impact. I'm Courtney, founder of the Philanthropy Place, a nonprofit consulting firm and your go-to fractional fundraising partner. I've spent my career in the nonprofit space helping organizations raise more, stress less, and build fundraising strategies that actually work. And now, I'm giving those insights straight to you. Whether you're in the fundraising trenches, leading a nonprofit, or just curious about how to give more intentionally, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Giving Nook. I am absolutely honored and thrilled to have today's special guest here with us. I will introduce you now to Dr. Leigh Anne Taylor Knight, who is the Executive Director and Chief Operating Officer at the DeBruce Foundation. Leigh Anne, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, it's such a privilege, Courtney. I can't wait to speak with you and our audience today.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's so much that we're going to accomplish in this episode. But to start, can you share with our listeners more on your professional journey and what got you to be at this point at the DeBruce Foundation?
Sure. Well, those of you who know me know that I started a career as a teacher, and I was an educator, a high school principal, and then an assistant superintendent, and have always cared about really making a difference in people's lives. When I was 18, I wrote a mission statement that stated I wanted to improve the quality of life for others in their near and far environments. And what God has provided me with the opportunity to do is to do that as a teacher, then as a researcher, and then now at the DeBruce Foundation, where we're committed to expanding career pathways to economic growth and opportunity. So each step has just given me the opportunity to perhaps have a bigger impact with a larger audience. And it's just been such a blessing, Courtney.
That's incredible. I mean, I feel like how many people can you meet when they're 18 that have a personal life mission statement? Only you, Leigh Anne. That's amazing.
Well, I think at Mizzou, I had a college class that made me write up. So don't think that I did it on my own.
You were just sitting in your bedroom one night.
No, we're going to give credit to the University of Missouri for that one.
Perfect.
So, yeah.
What are some of the professional experiences that you've had in your life that have most shaped the way that you now lead through the DeBruce Foundation in your role? I mean, so many people look up to what you do in our community, your staff, all of these, folks that you actually support in our community in Kansas City. What are some of those experiences that you're like, that really shaped me?
Yeah, well, it really actually goes back to exactly that list of folks and stakeholders that you talk about. Is I've had so many people across my lifetime who have poured into me and have poured into my career, have poured into my educational opportunities. And so if you're a person out there who likes to give to others, serve others, pour into others, allow me to tell you that you will change the life trajectory of those people by doing so. And I think that's that's the common theme. That's the thread. And so now when I get the opportunity to help others know how to do that for others and with others, it just continues to be really a blessing and has been, the red thread that has continued throughout my lifetime.
And that's incredible because you're easing into the sort of next question that I have for you. You've been in education, you've been in philanthropy and innovation in this space, right? It's such an interesting thread to where you are now. And I would love to know if you had to sort of sum it up, what do you think keeps calling you to this work every day right now?
It is that word innovation.
Okay.
Because in this world, there are always like challenges, right, for individuals. And so it's about trying to think about what's the root cause of that. And if there are challenges and there are issues, can't we all work together to actually find solutions for those? And, the gift that we have at the DeBruce Foundation is this incredible team who believes that it's challenging for people who are choosing careers. It's challenging for people who are having to change careers. It's challenging for employers who are trying to think about how do we recruit? How do we retain? How do we upskill? How do we reskill? So there are a lot of challenges that are there. And Mr. DeBruce, through his generosity, has committed to let's think about how we have impact over the decades to come.
Sure.
And so we know that this is something people will continue to have to choose and change careers. Our economy will be driven by businesses being able to have a qualified workforce who enjoys doing what they're doing every day. And it's that combination, it's that building that bridge. And so innovation, finding solutions, in this particular space has just been something that's driven me, but more importantly, we have a whole team who cares about that. Yeah. And we have a whole community who cares about it.
Yes.
Right?
We do right now.
We have, and I say community, yes, here in the Kansas City metropolitan area, but beyond that, right? We're a national foundation that happens to be headquarters in Kansas City.
Well said. Yes.
with a ripe ecosystem in Kansas City that has allowed us to try a lot of things. But we have the benefit of seeing across the nation, these are issues and challenges that need to be solved with and for individuals and with and for industry. And so that's been a good opportunity for us to really act on the charitable mission of expanding career pathways.
Sure. And I want to dive even deeper into this because I think it's a fascinating mission what you all do. And as you mentioned, it is a national reach. It is not, you happen to be located in Kansas City. The reach is strong here. We all feel you. And we're so thankful that you're here, I think, because it means there is, a huge impact in this community specifically.
And thank you to Mr. and Mrs. DeBruce for that.
Of course. Yes. And I would love to know a little bit more about your day-to-day work. Like take me behind the scenes of what your staff does. What does it look like at the DeBruce Foundation, week to week, month to month?
Oh, I love that question. That's like a new one.
I know.
That's one that I haven't gotten.
I'm just thinking of if you're explaining to people like this is what you would see if you were behind the scenes. We're strategizing, we're doing these things, but what an incredible, team of people that are dedicated.
Right. Well, I think we'll onboard some new interns,
Sure.
And so I'm thinking, and we're, as we onboard new employees and new folks who contract services with us, I'm like, what is it that we tell them and how do we bring them into the space? So we do think constantly about what are the barriers to people when they're choosing careers and when they're changing careers. So the team is constantly even looking at research and we're conducting research, right? So we have team members who actually conduct research, looking at the dynamic economy. Some of the national reports that we have are around employment empowerment, and we've been doing that national study since 2020. So you and I may touch on, what some of that is. Yeah. But when we understand what it takes for an individual to be employment empowered, right? To have a job where they have control over their working conditions, they have better benefits, they have better salaries, they're enjoying what they're doing every day, and they will think about even pursuing jobs that they haven't ever thought of before. That's what we call employment empowered. So our team takes deep dives into national data sets, into research projects that we actually conduct, some that we commission. And then try to understand that across a lifespan. So what does it take when someone's choosing a career early in life? What does it take when they're teenagers and then their 20s and they're kind of in that early searching piece?
Sure.
And then what does it take, let's say, if your industry goes away or you have to pivot or you have to make a change? Or what about your life circumstances changing? Perhaps you're going back into the workforce after caring for an elderly person or a child in your family, or after coming out of our justice system. So people pivot into careers and change across a lifetime. So we're constantly looking at that. What does the research say about that? What's the research we can conduct? And then we're really prototyping what are the kinds of tools, which is how we built the Agile Work Profiler.
I was just about to ask about the Agilities Network. I was like, this is where we're leading, isn't it? Okay.
Yeah, well, the Agilities were developed as our signature tool. We said, what if there was a way for an individual to think about not only what they do well, or not just what they like to do, not just thinking about their personality and relationship to a career, but what if there was a way to combine? What is it you like to do and what is it that you do well? What's the intersection of those? And that's what we call the agilities. So they're work activities. They're used in every job in the economy. Our theory is set in a growth mindset. So you can grow and develop these work activities that are used in every single job in the economy. And our Agile Work Profiler will help you find what your ranked set of agilities are today, and knowing that with the right experiences, you can grow and develop those. Now you have confidence to begin to spelunk out there, Courtney, and look at some of those jobs that you've never considered before.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
So it's going to take that for individuals who are choosing careers, maybe haven't heard of certain industries or opportunities. It's going to take that for individuals who are changing careers.
Yeah.
How do they have the confidence to know what I like to do and what I do well? What's the intersection? And what might be industries or jobs where I could bring value into the career marketplace? And then how do I search and find those jobs in the career marketplace? And that's where industry is just like screaming out like, help people understand, like, what do we have to put in our job descriptions? What do we have to make available to individuals so they'll know they have experiences that maybe could translate into doing work for us? And so that now it's kind of bridging that industry with those individuals. And so those are the kinds of tools that we've been building and doing. And what's happened in the last few years is so many of our partners have said, it's great to do it with high school and college and early career and older, but what do you have for middle schoolers? What do you have for elementary? Like
getting younger and younger.
Yeah. And so, and there is something to that, right? So while children aren't going to choose what their career is, and they're not going to, but they are. Doing things in school, doing things in church activities, doing things in volunteer organizations, 4-H and 2020 leadership. They're doing things where they are organizing and they are selling and communicating. They are managing. They are developing others. Those are some of the agilities, right? We all do those across our lifetime. So it's never too young to start talking with elementary students and middle school students about you're already having experiences. And developing in spaces that someone will pay you someday to do a job.
And you're helping them sort of reframe success, right? Of what they might think, I'm doing this experience, I'm participating in this club or this organization or this extracurricular activity, but you're helping them see that that can go beyond that, right? Like there's a skill set here that's needed, and maybe that's a trade, right? Or maybe it's, something to do with education and it's not a trade-based thing, but I'm thinking about how you all are also supporting both young learners as well as those in their career and redefining and reframing what success can look like for them, right? That's a huge part of what you do.
Yes. And really working with organizations too who are developing, and our schools are doing such a better job of this. And those of you who are working with youth when you're volunteering, those of you who are working with adults, we have to cultivate a growth mindset, right? We really have to feed into the fact that you will change across your life experiences. And so how do we grow and develop and those kinds, and then giving a name to that, right? So many, I serve on the KC STEM Alliance board here in Kansas City, and heard a long time ago from just businesses in town, like we need kids to be interested in STEM careers. Oh, and we want them doing really cool things like FIRST Robotics and Project Lead the Way and having these kinds of experiences, Make 48. But when they graduate and they come to us, how can they speak about those experiences, right? It's not enough as a student or as a teacher or a coach who's helping these youth to just say, just put that on your resume. No, you really need to put on your resume the activity. You need to be able to explain what you're better at doing now because you learned how to judge and estimate. You learned how to inspect. And Dylan was talking earlier about being in the CAPS program, right? So 21st century learning programs in Olathe, CAPS programs in Blue Valley and other school districts in the Northland, all kinds of our schools, and even our Kaufman Real World Learning efforts that are, again, spreading across the nation. All of these are really good examples of giving youth those opportunities, but then they need that language to be able to talk about that.
Sure. And one thing I keep hearing you saying is talking about this growth mindset. And I'm so curious to know, especially as you look back in the last 5-10 years, specifically, are there moments, are there challenges, especially we went through 2020 together, right, in the pandemic and the funding needs for that and everything shifting and changing. Was there something that is surprising to you about the foundation's journey in the last couple of years of where you've directed your time, your efforts, insights that you want to share with the listeners?
what I continue to be surprised by, we just had a meeting a couple of hours ago. What I continue to be surprised by are the number of entities and the number of individuals who really do want to help people expand their career pathways. And so what should never surprise me, because it's the only way I've gotten anything done in this lifetime, is that together we can really expand career pathways. So it is about a togetherness, but it is around the collaboration and the cooperation and having a commitment to being able to do that. And each of us bringing our best, and that, we at the DeBruce Foundation, we don't believe for 1 minute that we're going to accomplish this mission of expanding pathways to economic growth and opportunity on our own in this country.
Well said.
We 100% believe that it will be through collaborative efforts and will be through us having conversations with those that are doing work-based learning opportunities, with those that are, we have a really cool partnership with the Department of Corrections in the state of Missouri.
I don't think I knew that.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Right. So you're in the space of they really have to think about 10,000, 11,000, 12,000 individuals walking out of institutions where they've been incarcerated each year. And then how do we put them on the pathway to be able to be successful now? And so what does that take to have that confidence? And so our partnerships span everything from, Maryland's Workforce Department of Labor, Indiana's Workforce Department and their Commission on Higher Education, their Department of Education. We see this in places where government entities, as well as community entities and industry and philanthropy and education entities, all want to come together to say it's going to take all of us together working on this.
Yes.
And so that, if I had to say what surprises me, it's just how many of you out there care about this, that you would even spend the time, to listen to this podcast. And then I just challenge you to say there is something you can do every single day in whatever chair you sit around the table, even bringing your voice to what will work when we're helping people choose and change careers.
Sure. And I would love to also share with them, if you don't mind, with our listeners, specifically when you're measuring how successful these programs are and these initiatives are, what are you measuring them against? When you look at something and when we were just talking about the Missouri incarceration and that partnership, beyond that, what are you like, that was a very successful, funding of this, specific project or this partnership that's long-term. What is the success measure? And that can be so many things. I know, you're like, can I show you the data? Can I show you the analytics? Can I show you the qualitative? But yeah.
Yeah, well, and it can also be in the space of our today answer for that is
That's true.
We have a brilliant board who definitely challenges us. While we're working on mass adoption, we are also working about really meaningful impact. And so how do you measure expanding career pathways to economic growth and opportunity? And you have to start thinking about a logic model of what are the inputs, what are the outputs, but really then what are the outcomes? And we have had some wonderful partners here in Kansas City, but in other parts of the nation too, that have said, we're on the career and, we're on the upward trajectory when we see these kinds of indicators. And some of our research around employment empowerment, we actually have some indicators that we can show in the national economy, when we're looking at people who have better jobs and, feel fulfilled in those jobs, better working conditions, better benefits, better able to save, they are employment empowered. And there are two factors that we know we can build in individuals, regardless of the systems that are out there, that we can help individuals build to be on that pathway to employment empowerment. One of those is career literacy. And one of those is network strength. Career literacy is about having that confidence to go for jobs, understanding your strengths and interests related to jobs, understanding what the career marketplace is out there, and that confidence to go for jobs that you never heard of or seen before. That's career literacy. We can build that. That's what the Agile Work Profiler, our Career Explorer tools, all of our K-12 resources that are now across schools, across the nation. That's what we're building, is that career literacy.
Yes.
And we're combining that with building network strength. That second factor that puts you on the pathway to employment empowerment is having a diverse and a deep network. That means that when I have to pivot as an adult, when I am an 18-year-old and having to think about what's next for me, I have individuals to go to who care enough and will spend that time, but they're from diverse backgrounds. They have different educational backgrounds than I have, or that my family has maybe. They have different social experiences than I have. They come from different industries from what I know from my family experiences or from my own job experiences. So that diversity and that deepness of those networks combined with career literacy, that makes a difference for employment empowerment.
This is so interesting because I was going to ask you, knowing that a core value of the DeBruce Foundation is equity, and how do you ensure that those who have been historically excluded in this space, and especially to the 2 points you just talked about, networking, right? Like I just keep thinking about some of those key words you're saying, and I'm thinking, okay, for those that have been excluded, historically in these spaces, how do you open the doors for them? And I'm curious if you have any kind of insight into that equity lens that you all take really as you move forward with partnerships.
Yeah, well, and you asked first about measurement, like how do we know that it's working? Yeah. Well, we actually have measurement to measure career literacy, measurement of network strength, right? And we've had partners that have really helped us tighten that, and we're continuing to tighten that and to understand that better, and also understand that with different audiences. What does that mean with the audiences that are served by the Department of Corrections?
Yes.
What does that mean by individuals who are across the ability spectrum? We were fortunate enough that Temple Grandin and Kate Duffy, a local author here in Kansas City.
Shout out to Kate, right?
Shout out to Kate. Shout out to Temple, who's world renowned and known. Yeah. They released the 3rd edition of a book that they have about individuals who are on the spectrum of autism, and what are the kinds of things that will make a difference for them being included in our talent pipeline and our workforce. Yeah. And they actually cited the DeBruce tools as being important to the mapping and the road mapping for individuals. So I think you have to take that attitude of they're going to be different solutions, back to, hey, what do we do every day? We're working on solutions all the time because different audiences need different things. So we can have a really good foundation of that, but now how do you think about that uniquely for individuals across the ability spectrum? Sure. How do you think about that uniquely for individuals who may be interacting with the Department of Corrections? Our equity lens then comes from, hey, employment empowerment is something that we as a community can and should expect for every single individual. Employment empowerment is something we should expect. How do we now enable ourselves to build the career literacy of every single individual, build the network strength of every single individual? And so, we got a long time of working on this, but that's our mission. And again, that's where together we believe we can do that. Yeah. And it's just peeling back the layers of what does it take to build that, and then providing resources to individuals and to organizations to be able to do that.
Well, and I would be curious, building on that, are you seeing any trends right now in the workforce development space? Like, are there things, I know you were mentioning some of the companies and those people saying, yes, we need this. Yes, we need this. Tell us what to write in this, this actual job posting and the description. Help us with this. What are you seeing as trends, just to share with some folks, who might be interested in that?
Sure. I think, and they're probably they're all the workforce trends that you already know too. It's like, how is globalization impacting our economy locally and, nationally and globally? How is technology? The last 3 days, I've spent a portion of my day learning about artificial intelligence and, how much is it going to, is it, will it change certain jobs a whole lot? Will some jobs go away? And one of the things that I would take away from this is that, people are talking about we need to have a growth mindset, right? Even about the technology, the globalization. And so, challenges that entities are having with recruiting and individuals having the skills that they need to do those jobs.
Sure.
I talked with a VP the other day of a local company, and he said, so I'm going to hire, Leigh Anne, individuals, and 6 months from now, they're going to actually have to be doing different jobs than they are today.
Surprise. Yes. That is the world we live in, right?
Is that what you said? We live in.
Yeah.
But I was like,
yeah.
But what if you had tools to help you understand, hey, here's what this person likes to do. Here's what they do really well. Here's the experiences that they're having right now in this first 6 months with us. Here's where we're going. All right. What are the other kinds of experiences? What will be the next work activities that they need to be able to do? And how do we build experiences to develop those? Right.
Right.
And that's what we're all going to have to keep working together to define. So I think when you kind of summarize, like, what is happening in workforce,
that's something that's coming up a lot, and I think that's probably an interesting factor. I'm curious. I mean, we're talking about partnerships, and I would be remiss to not ask some philanthropic questions due to the line of what the underlying mission of your work. But what role do you believe that philanthropy is really taking right now in shaping the future workforce? I know there's a lot of individuals, there's foundations, there's corporations and their CSR initiatives that are really investing in this space. But I am curious your personal opinion of that role of philanthropy with this next gen and what that looks like.
Yeah. Philanthropy can take risk that others cannot. And the gift that we've been given by Mr. DeBruce is go out there and find some challenges where we can have impact over the decades to come, and then start developing solutions. And there's risk that comes with that, right? Because we have to understand a solution is not a solution unless it works. We are
well said.
We are one experiment away from failure at any given point in time when we're working on solutions as a community or as an entity. So I do believe that philanthropy can take risk that others cannot. However, the beautiful thing about this community of individuals who care about helping people expand their career pathways is they recognize that no risk, no reward, right? So they step into the ring with us and they say, let's try that. Let's work on this. And the individuals who step into the ring and say, I'll try that. I'll give you feedback on that. The Department of Corrections work, we're actually going in and working with individuals and saying, what if this works for you? And what if this is completely off base with teachers and our K-12
that
resources?
Feedback then is
that
key.
Feedback loop is 100% key to us. And in philanthropy, we will commit to doing that. And we have so many beacons of philanthropy, not only here in Kansas City, but across the nation that are committed to this. We are coming up with solutions. We are finding things that are working. And so I have hope that we will continue to find more because of your audience who's out there now and because of others who care about it.
Sure. So we've been talking a lot about your partnerships and what that looks like. We're, really just starting to hit the surface with philanthropy. But I would love to ask, I know this is probably a question you get from everyone in the community and nationwide, but as you are seeking the right partners to co-create in this work, what are the ideal partner qualities that you're looking for in organizations at the DeBruce Foundation?
Well, like everyone else who does good work in this space, we think about the intentional investments for impact, right?
Okay.
Our end game is impact. So what are the intentional investments for impact? What are the ingredients for that? And so we have what are called the 5 A's of intentional investment for impact.
Fun.
1, alignment of mission. 2, access to an audience who they're serving and we care about serving. 3, the ability for our goals to be accelerated and their goals to be accelerated. So alignment with audience or alignment of mission, access to audience, acceleration of our goals, accountability partners? Will you measure for success? Will you learn with us about here's what works, here's what doesn't work? And the fifth one is allocation of resources. What's the time, talent, and treasure that we from the DeBruce Foundation will be putting into this project? What's the time, talent, and treasure that the partner will be putting in? So those 5 A's of intentional investment for impact are how we really kind of frame our approach to partnerships and working with others.
I would be curious also to ask this is as you're looking through that lens of those 5 A's, which I love that you have an alliteration there of what's to come. No matter the size of the organization, or does it matter the size of the organization, at what point someone might be able or invited to apply, right, for a partnership with you all and funding from you all? I mean, I really look at things through an equity lens, and I'm just curious for our listeners, especially if they're nonprofit organizations, which we have quite a few from, is there a barrier to entry outside of those 5 A's? Because that's a great lead.
Yeah. Our charitable mission has really led us down the road to be more about providing the resources and the tools for individuals and for organizations who are serving those who are choosing and changing careers. So we find ourselves partnering in that space rather than being a grant-making organization. And so it's kind of like, well, would these tools align with your mission? Do you have an audience who could actually use them? Do you want to accelerate goals related to helping people be better informed career decision makers? Sure. Do you want to be accountable? I mean, and that a level of accountability. I mean, you can use our tools without sharing data or talking about what's working or what's not working. But we love partners that want to partner with us in that space. And then the allocation of resources. Yeah, there's going to be some time and talent on your side of things to actually kind of learn. But we provide trainings at no cost to be able to know how to use the tools and access to them, and everything is available through the gift of technology and online resources. So it's less about us trying to seek those right partners, but it's more about partners seeing these are resources from a charitable organization, and oh, by the way, I can use them at, a low to no cost when it comes to time and talent, because the investment has been made by the DeBruce Foundation.
Incredible. And I appreciate you sort of debunking, if people aren't aware of that, what that looks like, right? When we say partnership with the DeBruce Foundation, it's really focusing on the tools and the resources and how does that help them actually expand and grow within their own communities and forward their mission, right? That's the whole point of this. And I love that you're saying, essentially there's no access to barrier of being able to, actually partner, as long as you're part of those 5 A's, right? Of like, does that align there, right? And so that's the main question.
But we don't want to limit an organization who has 20 individuals from being able to come to Agility's coach training and pick up the tools and use them. It doesn't matter the size of school that you are in. You could serve 2,200 kids in your high school. You could serve 22 kids in your high school. They can all benefit from these resources. And so that's what we have in mind as it relates to that. So the barrier is really only anything that you have on your side that would be a barrier to your being able to engage with the resources and engage with us in trainings and using them.
And I appreciate how much you all do for the community. That is, I feel like making sure that you're getting that into the hands of everyone who needs it, if it's possible. And that's what you just said. And I appreciate that, because I think there, again, we were kind of talking about an equity lens there, but it's like, I will make sure that you're able to access this training or whatever that might be. And maybe it's not the full suite of, tools and resources, but it's something. And you do a lot through that in the community in Kansas City that I've at least seen. And I know nationally you have as well.
Thank you. Cindy, one of our teammates today who does a lot of these trainings, she had a concentrated group of folks who are vocational rehabilitation educators from across the state today. And, they work with individuals who are transitioning out of high school, but across the spectrum of abilities. And we knew that their training could be unique and we could customize and do some pretty cool things with them, but they wanted to bring those vocational rehabilitation educators in to do that. So, those kinds of opportunities, they just get us jazzed up at the DeBruce Foundation because it's like, oh yeah, that's a unique audience. Ooh, that would be really cool. And we could do something special with them. So.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. And I would love to sort of pivot into a personal mindset from you as Leigh Anne and giving advice to some of our folks that are listening, especially if they are in the nonprofit sector right now, as a leader, as a fundraiser, as someone who is really just trying to understand what this next year looks like currently in this space. Do you have any advice for folks who are in their career in nonprofit trying to find or redefine their path right now? I feel like you have such an interesting path. Again, it's like the intersectionality of everything's, one door opens, another closes, and here you are, through this pathway of education. And we talked about innovation and now at the DeBruce Foundation. So I would be curious to ask
Courtney, thank you for asking that. Yeah. And so for those of you in the audience who are trying to think about what's next or how am I going to be inspiring to others and inspiring to myself, I really think it's critical to know yourself. And the more that you know about what you care about, again, what you like to do and what you do well, and then surrounding yourself with a network of individuals, my career journey has just been blessed over and over again by the people who have coached, who have mentored, who have guided, who have championed the work that we've been doing, and me personally. And so I would say, those two ingredients that we talked about earlier to be employment empowered, it's career literacy and it's network strength. And for me, it goes back to that. It's like, a part of career literacy is just knowing yourself and what you care about, and then having that network. And the other thing that I would say is make sure that you are generous when it comes to your network. Think more about what you can give rather than what you will get. And that's where there have been just huge returns on my investment, is to give and to give as much as possible, because it will come back to you tenfold. So those of you in that space in your career, make sure that when you're networking, think more about what you can give rather than what you're going to get.
And that is so well said. I actually want to share just a quick personal story of what that actually shows that coming to life that you did, Leigh Anne, because we met at Kansas City Business Journal's Mentoring Monday, and she's sitting here telling you, think about what you can give. And I feel so lucky that I got 15 minutes of your time to sit across from a table, and there was all of these incredible women at Mentoring Monday, and it was a phenomenal event. And I specifically knew there were certain questions about my career path that I wanted to sit down and ask you, and you were so generous with your time and everything like that. And I just say that in a way of that you are living exactly what you are, sharing as advice. You live it, and I'm so grateful for that time that you gave me. And it's such great advice for our listeners.
Thank you, Courtney. Well, and it's shameful I have to say this. I probably get more out of the mentoring. I love it. And now I feel like we're fast friends. And there's all kinds of things Courtney and Leigh Anne are going to be able to do together
so
now.
True.
But
you never know what will happen when you open that door of even giving someone 15 minutes of your time.
That's
Here
right.
we are.
That's right.
I would love to ask a few closing questions that are kind of big picture, but one of my favorite questions to ask folks on the podcast is more or less talking about your why, right? And so is there a moment or a memory in this work that you do day in and day out that you come back to as like, oh, that was really a moment where I was living in my purpose and the why of what I'm doing?
Yes. So, I was born and raised in a family that believed in doing for others. So I just kind of that along with my church affiliation, it's ingrained in me. But I can remember being a first-year teacher and having a student, and the student was pregnant in high school and young, like 15 years old. And I still think about her today because she changed my life, because she was the student in the class who said, this is the situation that I'm in, but I am not going to have this define me. And here's what I want out of my career. Here's what I want to do. And I was so blessed with the opportunity to have Shannon in my life, and for Shannon to say to me, well, how do I do this? And how do I do that? And we just, work together. And by golly, she is a mom with a beautiful family and became a nurse. She did all the things that she wanted to do. Yeah. And she did it despite the odds. She did not necessarily have a supportive family system. She did not necessarily have the things that a lot of times put other people ahead. And so even today, I think back to, she did it, and it gave me hope, and it taught me really early that there are things that we can do when we pour into the lives of others that will completely change the trajectory of their lives. But more importantly, it also changed the trajectory of my life.
Yes.
I serve today because of her. I think.
Thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing that. I think that's an incredible story. I would be remiss to not end on a final note of sort of taking it back big picture to where the DeBruce Foundation is. Yeah. And I would love to know if you could share, one big thing that excites you the most right now that you wish everyone knew about what you're doing in that work. Would you mind sharing it?
Yeah. I mean, we will build this bridge between individuals trying to be better informed career decision makers and industry having the talent that they need. Those of you who are getting to experience it with us now, just hang on for the ride, because what I can tell you is it is going to happen because too many people in this country and in this community care about building this bridge between individuals and industry, and it's going to happen. And we will continue to have more and more people who have higher rates of career literacy, higher network strength, and are employment empowered. And that just jazzes me up to get out of bed every morning. I know we're going to do it.
As it should. And I just want to say thank you, Leigh Anne, so much for your time today. Thank you for sharing your passion for the mission of your work and for your background and your history. And I think more than anything, your enthusiasm for what is to come. And we just felt that. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Courtney. It's been a delightful time to be with you. Thank you, audience.
And that's a wrap on this episode of The Giving Nook. I hope today's conversation gave you something, whether it's a fresh idea, a new perspective, or just a little more confidence in your fundraising journey. If you're loving what we're giving, be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss what's next. And if you're feeling generous, a quick review helps more people like you find us. Want to keep the conversation going? Connect with me on LinkedIn or visit thephilanthropyplace.com, where I share fresh fundraising insights every other week. Here's to fundraising that feels good, works smarter, and changes lives. See you next time in The Giving Nook.